इशू है, क्योंकि हमको ये जानना होगा कि रिव्यूअर कौन होता है, कितने मॉडल्स हैं पीयर रिव्यू के अवेलेबल है ना. नॉविस रिसर्चर्स को ये पता नहीं होता. तो लेट अस understand this basic reviewers process, what is basically peer review about and why it's important, because I think this question is very important, why it is important, right? So as far as the definition of peer review is concerned, and it is known somewhere from 1969, right? So if we see the basic definition of peer review, it is basically a procedure, a judgment and an evaluation on a piece of scientific or other professional work by other experts functioning in the same field, right? So जब भी हम अपना काम प्रोड्यूस करते हैं, right, we through the journal we present it to someone who is a competent person in that particular field, right? So he's or she is basically an expert. A reviewer is basically an expert in the same domain, right, in which we have published our work, right? So he is someone who judges our work, who evaluate the scientific writing, and he tries to find out whether the paper is acceptable to be called as a scientific paper and should be published in the journal or not, right? So this is what basically a peer review process is. It is basically a process, a judgment and an evaluation of the scientific or professional work by some experts functioning in the same field, right? And why it is important? I think it's very, very important. Why? Because say in comparison to, say, you have some let us think about some experiments which are going on in the field of science, right? And experiments are of very large scale in the sense huge funding is involved, and a lot of people are involved, and the community is very small. Say for example the area of physics, and under physics we pick up very small area which is very, very, very confined, and experimental scale is very large. In that case we can assume that the authorship will be very high, है ना. वहाँ खूब सारे authors होंगे क्योंकि experiment का scale बड़ा large है. It has got lot of fundings. Experiment का scale large है, authorship high है, और even concept को अगर theoretically judge किया जाए तो हम उसको inspect कर सकते हैं कि वो सही है या गलत है. लेकिन अगर हम गौर से हम अपने काम को देखें, specifically the type of publications we are into in, right, these experiments are not very large scale experiments, right? These are almost small scale experiments. हम कितने दिन experiment करते हैं, कितनी ज्यादा हम longitudinal studies करते हैं, कितनी it's almost rare, right? We are mostly involved in cross sectional studies. आज questionnaire उठाया, भरवाया लोगों से, वो भी 300-350 लोगों से, and then on that we are claiming that whatever we have produced is authentic and correct, right? इतनी सारी authorship है उस paper को evaluate करने के लिए, criticize करने के लिए. In that case, I think peer review becomes, it comes as a very handy process. It comes as a filtration process. Why? Because the audience is large, है ना. लोग खाने के लिए बैठे हुए हैं कि ये है क्या, right? And authorship इतनी low है, ऊपर से courtesy to UG, 2 authors के आते ही हमारे numbers कम हो जाते हैं, 3 authors के आते तो और numbers कम हो जाते हैं, right? And if you see publications done by people specifically, in the US structure or the UK structure, you will medical structure specifically, you find a lot of authors, because in that case the objective is to get the solution of the research, right, rather than concentrating on publishing an article, right? So the moment you have very few people, I think authentication already decreases at that point, right? And in that case peer review process becomes very handy. At least there should be someone competent in our field who can check our work, whether it's good enough to be published in an article, whether it is good enough to be called a scientific article, right? So that's why I think in summary we can say that peer review process is very, very important, right? So from importance, let us see what are the different models of peer review available. I think there are only 5 to 6 models which are available for peer review, right? And the major one is definitely the double anonymous peer review, but let me start with single anonymous peer review, right? So a single anonymous peer review, double anonymous peer review, triple anonymous peer review, open peer review, and post-publication peer review. So these are some of the models which are available for the peer review process, right? So in single anonymous peer review, what happens is that the name of the reviewers are hidden, right, from the author. So the reviewers, the name of the reviewers are hidden from the author. So author's identity is quite very much known to the reviewers, but the reviewer's identity is not disclosed to the author, right? So it is very beneficial in the sense that suppose कल को आप जनरल अपना कोई खोलते हैं तो उसमें सिंगल एनोनिमस भी रख सकते हैं, क्योंकि उसका एक सबसे बड़ा फायदा ये है कि ऑथर को कैंडिडेट की प्रोफाइल को इवैल्यूएट करने का मौका मिल जाता है. सपोज समवन वांट्स टू सी इफ आशीष हैज गिवन अ पेपर इन ए रैंक जनरल, वेदर ही इज applicable for A rank or not, right? Let me check Ashish Arya's profile first of all, right? So in that case, रिव्यूअर के पास एक मौका है कि ऑथर की प्रोफाइल को चेक करने का, और उसके अकॉर्डिंगली हम पे को ऑथर्स भी कई सारे हैं कि मतलब हाउ मेनी पीपल हैव इनटू पब्लिकेशन, लेट मी चेक द प्रोफाइल. सो ऑथर्स रिव्यूअर्स जो भी रिव्यूअर्स हैं वो ऑथर्स की प्रोफाइल को चेक कर सकते हैं और देख सकते हैं कि हाउ मच ऑथेंटिकेटेड द प्रोफाइल लुक्स लाइक, क्योंकि उसके बेसिस पे उनका डिसीजन स्ट्रांग हो सकता है. लेकिन इस प्रोसेस में एक बायसनेस है कि यहाँ पे एक प्रोफाइल की आइडेंटिटी डिस्क्लोज है, राइट? In comparison, the most unbiased, among the most unbiased is your double anonymous peer review, in which neither the reviewers or neither the author's identity is disclosed. तो कई बार हम आर्टिकल्स भी सबमिट करते हैं, अगर आप लोगों ने देखा हो तो आर्टिकल जब हम सबमिट करते हैं पीयर रिव्यू के लिए तो वहां से कई बार गलती से हमारा आर्टिकल पे और अपनी ऑथर आइडेंटिटी रखी रह जाती है, तो इमीडिएटली वहां से एडिटर का ईमेल आ जाता है कि भैया सबसे पहले आप अपने आर्टिकल को एनोनिमस कीजिए, राइट? यू कैनॉट हैव द आइडेंटिटी योर डिटेल्स, इवन द टाइटल पेज, कंप्लीट टाइटल पेज इज बीइंग रिव्यूड, राइट? तो टाइटल पेज ऑथर की डिटेल्स आप नॉर्मली सबमिट मत कीजिए, एक बार जनरल की गाइडलाइंस को प्रॉपर्ली पढ़ लीजिए, उसके बाद ही सबमिट कीजिए. मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द आर्टिकल्स, राइट, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द जर्नल्स एक्चुअली यूज डबल एनोनिमस peer review. It means you cannot your identity as an author can never be disclosed to the reviewers, right? तो अपना टाइटल पेज, ऑथर पेज, ऑथर्स प्रोफाइल, ये सब अलग से जाता है, अलग से सबमिट होता है, और आर्टिकल स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम एब्स्ट्रैक्ट, राइट, गोज in other way, right? So the title can be there, it may be, you have to check the details in the journal and accordingly please submit, right? In triple anonymous peer review, even the editor does not know about the author, right? So in that case, in the triple anonymous peer review, the identity of the author, editors remains hidden from each other, right? So everybody is almost hidden, and the submission system is such like that nobody knows anybody, right? And I think some of the journals follow triple anonymous peer review, but I haven't come across till now. But I know that some of the philosophy journals use this process, triple anonymous. The next type of peer review is open peer review, right? So open peer review means in this identity is open, right? This can vary in many forms. It can be simple as making the authors and reviewers known to each other, or the reviewers and the reviewer's name may be published alongside the article. So that the review process may take pre and post publication report may receive their DOI, right? So in open peer review, many article journals are there in specifically in elsewhere, in which the reviewers peer review report is annexed along with the article the moment the article is published. But open peer review in a nutshell means the author's identity and the reviewer's identity is open to both, right? And there is also a thing called as post-publication peer review. Post-publication means articles get published immediately, but the reviewer comments may get after some time, right? So specifically, if we say, for example, say COVID-19 pandemic situation was there, right? So in that case, if somebody, medicine was more important than knowing what were the effects of that, right? If initial trials के बाद अगर ये पता चल गया कि medical is safe enough, तो what are the side effects of that can be learned through the different stages, right? और जैसे ब्लड क्लॉटिंग का हमको पता चला था, इनिशियली नहीं पता चला था ब्लड क्लॉटिंग के बारे में, लेकिन ब्लड क्लॉटिंग का हमको पता चला था आफ्टर फ्यू टाइम दैट कि कहीं कुछ केसेस में ब्लड क्लॉटिंग भी विजिबल हो रही है जब कोविड-19 की वैक्सीन लग रही है. लेकिन हम मेजॉरिटी सेंस में जानते हैं कि उस एक दो परसेंटेज ऑफ एरर्स, पॉइंट्स के जो परसेंटेज ऑफ एरर्स हैं, उससे भी इंपॉर्टेंट क्या था, दवाई का मार्केट में आना, दवाइयों का हमको मिलना, राइट? तो पोस्ट पब्लिकेशन पीयर रिव्यू में आर्टिकल इज पब्लिश्ड prior and then the reviewer reports comes at the later stages, right? So these are the different models of peer review, and we have came to know that peer review is very important. Now let us move to the next stage, that is understanding the overall peer review process, right? So this is how the peer review process looks like. हम अपना आर्टिकल सबमिट करते हैं जर्नल को, राइट? और सबसे पहला जो पड़ाव आता है वो आता है एडिटर को, एडिटर से रूबरू होना। और यहाँ पे ये सब अपना अपने फर्स्ट स्टेज एक ऐसी स्टेज है जिसमें कि अच्छे जर्नल्स का तो ऑलमोस्ट 60% जो रिजेक्शंस हैं, 60% जो रिजेक्शंस हैं वो इसी स्टेज पे हो जाते हैं, राइट? एडिटर इज बेसिकली द गेट कीपर ऑफ द जर्नल, राइट? ही चेक्स वेदर द आर्टिकल इज अकॉर्डिंग टू द स्कोप ऑफ माय जर्नल और नॉट, वेदर आर्टिकल इज गुड एनफ और नॉट फॉर माय जर्नल, वेदर आर्टिकल लुक ऑथेंटिकेटेड और नॉट। जो कई सारे फैक्टर्स हैं जो एडिटर देखता है आर्टिकल को पब्लिश करने से पहले, और इमीडिएटली वहां पे वो एक लेवल का डिसीजन देता है। वो क्या डिसीजन है? Editor rejects the submission if it doesn't meet the journal's editorial's objective, right? तो अभी आगे मैं आपको एक चीज और बताऊंगा कि what editors hate। तो आपको उन पॉइंट्स में भी ध्यान देना कि अगर आप उन पॉइंट में नहीं ध्यान देंगे तो ये जो एरो नीचे की तरफ जा रहा है काफी हद तक चांसेस हैं, तो आपको उसका सामना करना पड़ेगा। मैं इसका सामना ऑलरेडी कर चुका हूं, राइट? एक बार एडिटर की डेस्क से आपका पेपर क्लियर हो गया तो नेक्स्ट इज एडिटर सेंड्स दैट पेपर फॉर पीयर रिव्यू प्रोसेस, राइट? और पीयर रिव्यू प्रोसेस को दैट्स व्हाई वी शुड सैल्यूट दिस कम्युनिटी, बिकॉज आई थिंक नोबडी इज बीइंग पेड, है ना? जब भी मैं अपने एडिटर भी था बिजनेस रिव्यू का फ्रॉम 18 to 20, I was never paid a single penny, and because it was my love for research and understanding the field of research, because of which I took that charge, right? So neither प्राइमरी एडिटर भी इसमें कोई बहुत ज्यादा आई डोंट थिंक सो कि पे किया जा रहा होगा। रिव्यूअर्स तो बिल्कुल भी पे नहीं किए जाते, ये हम सब लोग ऑटोमेटिकली जानते हैं। तो एडिटर्स जब रिव्यूअर्स को पेपर भेजते हैं, रिव्यूअर्स अपनी चेकलिस्ट के हिसाब से पेपर को रिव्यू करते हैं। वो चेकलिस्ट क्या होती है मैं भी आपको दिखाता हूँ। एडिटर्स उन पेपर्स को रिव्यू करते हैं, रिव्यूअर्स पेपर जब रिव्यू कर लेते हैं, पेपर रिव्यू करने के बाद वो वापस एडिटर को भेजते हैं एक सर्टेन टाइम में, राइट? और उसके बाद एडिटर 3 तरह के डिसीजन लेता है, राइट? पेपर पे 3 तरह के ब्रॉड डिसीजन आते हैं। या तो पेपर रिजेक्ट होगा, राइट? एडिटर को जो रिव्यूअर से कमेंट मिले उसके हिसाब से पेपर डज नॉट जस्टिफाई अदर साइंस और आइदर मेनी ऑफ द थिंग्स व्हिच रिव्यूअर्स फाइंड दैट द पेपर इज नॉट अप टू द मार्क, तो ही मे रिजेक्ट द पेपर। सेकंड इज ही मे tell you to revise the paper, which broadly categorizes into 2 categories: minor revisions and major revision. Major revision means आपकी थ्योरी में कुछ फॉल्ट है, आपकी मैथोलॉजी में कुछ इतना फॉल्ट है कि उसकी वजह से जो आर्टिकल की रिफ्लेक्शन आनी चाहिए वो नहीं आ पा रही, तो उसमें फिर आपको रिव्यूअर मेजर करेक्शंस बोलता है। इट मींस योर इंट्रोडक्शन नीड इंप्रूवमेंट, योर रिसर्च मैथोलॉजी सेक्शन नीड इंप्रूवमेंट, योर एनालिसिस एंड इवन द कंक्लूजन पार्ट नीड्स इंप्रूवमेंट, राइट? जबकि माइनर रिविजन्स में आई थिंक ओनली कोई पोर्शन ऑफ द सेक्शन है, थ्योरी में कोई मेजर एरर नहीं है, लेकिन कोई ऐसा सेक्शन है जिसकी वजह से आपका पेपर अभी इंप्रूवमेंट के लिए 1 या 2 लेवल का इंप्रूवमेंट उसको चाहिए, राइट? सो इन दैट केस दोस कंडीशंस आर मेट अंडर माइनर रिविजन्स। आपकी पूरी कोशिश ये होनी चाहिए कि किसी भी तरीके से माइनर रिविजन्स की तरफ आप आर्टिकल जाए, मेजर रिविजन्स की तरफ आपका आर्टिकल नहीं जाए, क्योंकि इसलिए डॉक्टर विष्णु कह रहे थे कि अपने किसी कुलीग से अपना पेपर जरूर पढ़वाइए ताकि ये क्लियर हो जाए कि कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियरिटी हो रही नहीं हो रही है, आपको खुद को क्लियर हो रही नहीं हो रही है, आपके फ्रेंड्स को क्लियर हो रही नहीं हो रही है जो आपकी सेम कम्युनिटी का इंडिविजुअल है। क्योंकि अगर हमको खुद ही क्लियर नहीं हो रहा है तो आई थिंक डोंट थिंक सो दैट रिव्यूअर्स विल बी एबल टू गिव गुड कमेंट्स ऑन आवर आर्टिकल, राइट? थर्ड थिंग इज कि आर्टिकल इज गुड, रिव्यूअर्स हैव गिवन गुड कमेंट्स। नॉर्मली एक राउंड में तो नहीं होता, लेकिन एक माइनर रिविजन्स के बाद ये चीजें आ जाती हैं। अगर आपका पेपर अच्छा है देन यू कैन गेट एक्सेप्टेंस फ्रॉम द एडिटर एंड after a certain period of time your article will be visible online, and after again a certain period of time your article will be published in hard copy having a volume and issue numbers and etc, right? So this is the basic review process through which a paper goes actually in a Scopus Index journals. तो ये वो चेकलिस्ट है, देखिए दोस्तों, जिनकी मैं बात कर रहा हूं, राइट? सो है ना, हमारे पास एक बेंचमार्क होना चाहिए स्पेसिफिकली जो लोग अपने रिसर्च साइकिल के सेकंड स्टेज पे हैं, जिन लोगों ने काम कर लिया, अपना पेपर तैयार कर लिया है, और वो लोग सोच रहे हैं कि मेरा आर्टिकल एक स्कोपस इंडेक्स जर्नल के लायक है भी या नहीं। तो आई थिंक प्लीज यूज दिस चेक शीट्स, इन चेक शीट्स को इस्तेमाल कर लीजिए, इनका स्नैपशॉट ले लीजिए। ये मेरे गुरुकुल बिजनेस रिव्यू का ही है जो चेकलिस्ट हम रिव्यूअर को देते हैं, और जो पॉइंट्स मैंने बोल्ड किए हुए हैं ये वो पॉइंट्स हैं जिसकी वजह से आपका पेपर अगर ये चीजें मार्जिनल की तरफ हुई, फ्रॉम एक्सेप्टेबल इन कंपैरिजन टू एक्सेप्टेबल और गुड, योर पेपर विल बी रिजेक्टेड, राइट? रिव्यूअर्स विल रिजेक्ट योर पेपर, राइट? सो इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट इज दैट कंप्लीटनेस ऑफ योर वर्क, राइट? आपका काम कंप्लीट है भी या नहीं, या आपने आधा अधूरा काम ऐसे भेज दिया है, अगर इट्स मार्जिनल, योर आर्टिकल इज डीम्ड टू बी रिजेक्टेड, राइट? क्लैरिटी इन राइटिंग टेबल ड्राफ्ट्स एंड इलस्ट्रेशन, आई थिंक अपने कुलीग से, अपने सुपरवाइजर से अगर आपको कुछ चेक कराना है तो अपने सुपरवाइजर को अपने आर्टिकल के साथ ये शीट अटैच करके दीजिए, राइट? ताकि आपका सुपरवाइजर ये देख सके, आपके कोई टीचर्स हैं, आपके कुलीग्स हैं, वो देख सकें कि वेदर ऑन दिस पैरामीटर्स योर आर्टिकल इज गुड और नॉट, right? I adapted this, this format from, right? InDesign uses almost the similar criteria. Third important point again, which will lead to rejection, is that subject relevance in the current course of time. If your article looks very old, it does not sound, produce something new, right? It is again deemed to be rejected. Articles, editor अगर reviewer इसको major भी डालता है as a comment, तो editor का हो सकता है इसको आपस में इसी point के basis पे आपका article reject करते हैं. Fourth important point, acknowledgement of work of others by references, right? Every editor wants this to make sure to happen, right? How much you have acknowledged the work of others, नहीं तो ये journal की credibility पे शक हो जाता है, right? कई बार editor से भी चूक हो सकती है, लेकिन मैं request करूंगा, I think ये हमारी पूरी community से कि it should be, it's a very important point, है ना? We should make sure, I think giving acknowledgement, giving credit to someone's work, I think it's something very good. It is something very humble. It's something very positive. भाई कल को हम लोग भी अपना काम करते हैं और हमारे पेपर से कोई चीज उठा के डाल देता है बिना हमको क्रेडिट दे. I think it's completely wrong. We will also feel bad about it.
One thing I'd like to add that when I was pursuing my PhD, my supervisor Professor Rajat Agrawal, he said one thing, that we as a researchers, we stand on the shoulder of giants.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. If we are studying marketing and if we are doing something in marketing, we are studying on the shoulders of people like Philip Kotler, who have developed all these things over the years. So giving citation basically not only gives credit to the people, but it also shows your sincerity, your commitment and your depth of knowledge towards the field of research and field of this that particular subject, and that makes a long-lasting impression in the academia when it comes to reviewers, when it comes to editors. So acknowledgement and citations is very important. And secondly, from a technical point of view, if you have used somebody else's work and you have not given them proper citation, then that may also fall into the line of unethical practices. Yes. And might also get a complaint of plagiarism raised against you. Definitely. Because that's what plagiarism actually is. Plagiarism is not just similarity indexes generated by these softwares. Plagiarism is actually using somebody else's work and not giving them proper credit.
And saying that it's your work.
Yeah. If you're not giving them proper credit through citation, then it basically means that you have developed this thing, and that is an unethical practice. So citations is very important.
Yes. Next point, C, the point number 5. Majority of citations are from recognized sources. So I know recognized sources like Web of Science, Scopus, listed journals, government reports, etc. It's very important, right? आपके citations में अगर ज्यादातर, इसलिए मैं कहता हूं कि आपके पास एक अच्छे डेटाबेस का एक्सेस होना जरूरी है. आपके पास स्कोपस का डेटाबेस का एक्सेस होना जरूरी है. आपके पास वेब ऑफ साइंस का एक्सेस होना जरूरी है. इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अगर नहीं है तो अपने कुलीग जैसे बनाइए जिनके थ्रू आप ये एक्सेस कर सकें, बिकॉज एल्स नहीं तो आप गूगल स्कॉलर के थ्रू आर्टिकल्स को डाउनलोड करेंगे, उनको साइट करेंगे, जिसमें से कि मैक्सिमम ऑफ द आर्टिकल्स हो सकता है जो स्कोपस इंडेक्स ना हो. अगर आपको स्कोपस इंडेक्स जर्नल्स में अपने पेपर डालने हैं, अपने उसमें पब्लिश करने हैं, तो मेक श्योर कि आपके मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द साइटेशन आर फ्रॉम स्कोपस इंडेक्स जर्नल्स. दैट्स इट्स ऑलमोस्ट नेसेसरी. और अगर नहीं भी है तो वो जो नहीं है, इट शुड बिलोंग्स टू सम रेप्यूटेड कैटेगरीज बुक्स, or it should belongs to some government reports. Don't involve citation from predatory journals. Don't involve citation from the regional journals. Not at all.
You can use, for example, sometimes we need secondary data that needs to be, incorporated in papers. So the best source of secondary data are reports from World Bank, United Nations, OECD, as well as state and central government departments, because in India we have a very extensive machinery of state and central government departments that compile data on different matrices. So you can use those data, and at the same time, when you're using data from these reports, either from OECD or from World Bank or from your local government or state government departments, do also cite the proper source as well as cite the latest reports in your paper. Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Because if you're writing a paper in 2022, it's advisable that you are citing a report which has been published for the financial year ending 2020-21. Okay. So that's the main thing. Do cite the latest report and give the proper citation. And don't rely on, you can cite newspaper articles also, but that should be from very reputed publications like Indian Express, Times of India, The Hindu, or the Time magazine. Don't cite from web portals or blogs. Those things are not considered as reliable, because as we have seen, there is a lot of fake news on the internet. So you have to cite on sources which have very reasonable body of people working behind them. So that's why it is said cite from Scopus, Web of Science, or from government reports, or from reports from big economic organizations that undertake this work.
Yes, and a majority of your citations should be research articles, else other part should be, I think, on the lower side, specifically if it's about research article, right? And next important point is organization of the manuscript. Again, it's very important. हर जर्नल की हर पब्लिशर की अपनी एक स्टाइल होती है, तो आपको उसका ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा, उसके अकॉर्डिंगली ही अपने आर्टिकल को मॉडिफाई करिए. हालांकि आज के डेट में अच्छे जर्नल्स इस चीज से बहुत थोड़े फ्लेक्सिबल है. अगर इनिशियली भी आपका थोड़े एरर्स हैं मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट में, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, तो वो बाद में एरर्स को ठीक कर देते हैं, लेकिन सब्जेक्टिव टू कंडीशन की आपके जो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट है उसमें कुछ नोवेलिटी, कुछ न्यूनेस, कुछ इंपॉर्टेंस, कंट्रीब्यूशन उसको लिखना चाहिए. Right? Next important point is originality of the work. Again, very important. Right? What's your contribution to the field of research? Right? Again, we are saying back and back again. Whatever we are publishing on the, whatever we are publishing. Our work is backed up on the shoulders of giants who have previously published their work. Right? So, how our work contribute to that particular field of research, again it's very important, right? हमारे काम किसी ना किसी रिसर्च एरिया में लोकेट होना चाहिए, किसी ना किसी बॉडी के पार्ट को छूना चाहिए, then only I think it's a good research article, right? Next important point is professional industrial relevance experience. ये जर्नल टू जर्नल भी डिपेंड करेगा. 8th point, कुछ जर्नल्स जिनकी ऑडियंस इंडस्ट्रियल ओरिएंटेड है, और ये आपको जर्नल की वेबसाइट से जाके ही पता चलेगा, जिनकी ऑडियंस इंडस्ट्री ओरिएंटेड है उनके लिए ये फैक्टर बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है, ये आपको ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा. 9th point, similarity index. It's very clear, anything published more than 10% of plagiarism based on Turnitin, right? Specifically, Turnitin Authenticate, 2 important softwares are there जिनकी plagiarism check बड़ी important है और काफी यूज होती है. उर्कुन को आई थिंक गवर्नमेंट में मैक्सिमम उर्कुन है, लेकिन उसमें भी 5 या 10% का फ्लक्चुएशन आपको
actually authenticate and this Turnitin are the industry standards when it comes to publication, judging similarity indexes. Both Elsewhere, Emerald, and InterScience, Sage all use some version of Authenticate and Turnitin. And the rule of thumb is that it should be, less than 10%. And if it's more than 10%, your paper gets disrejected. Okay, means it's not sent into the review. The editor doesn't process it any further.
Immediately disreject.
Immediately, within an hour or in a day or two, you will get the paper back saying that the similarity index is too high. Please revise. So please do that. Do this exercise in the starting development stage of your manuscript, so that when the entire manuscript gets run through this plagiarism detection software, your similarity is less than 10%. Okay, and this is just word similarity. Plagiarism is actually stealing somebody else's idea, but you have to, walk a fine line on both of these aspects regarding plagiarism. Similarity should also be low, and if you are using somebody else's idea, please give them proper citation.
For Turnitin import, if I'm not wrong, it's less than 1%.
Pardon?
For the Turnitin referencing list, I think it's less than 1% for each and every item, na?
Yeah.
But it should not be 5% का criteria भी है.
If a particular source in Turnitin shows less than 1%, then that source is considered non-significant.
Yeah, non-significant. Which means it is okay.
It is okay. Okay, but that actually piles up the score fraction by fraction.
Yes.
To a little bit more. So if you are actually, working very hard on getting your similarity score down, then it is advisable that first you work on the sources which are showing more than 1%, and then after that you take on the sources which are showing less than 1%.
Okay. Yes, definitely. And next is 10th, 11th, and 12th. Again, they are very important. Your technical errors are very important. Your manuscript should be free of commercialization. It should not look like an advertisement, and your paper length should again be, according to the journal. If journal says that your paper length should be something between 5,000 to 7,000 words, try to obey that, because he may reject a paper because that's the general requirement. Right? And accordingly, on this base, all these 12 points, right? The reviewer may give major revisions, may give minor revisions, or reject the article. Right? And on that 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, their point are most important. Make sure that these points are visible in your articles. You have to decorate your article, you have to prepare your article according to these important points. Right? एक और चेकलिस्ट दिखाता हूँ, ये तो हमारे जैसे जीबीआर की है और इंडस साइंस से रिलेटेड है. ये पॉइंट्स हैं, कुछ पॉइंट अगर आप एमराल्ड में अपना पेपर भेजेंगे तो वहां चेकलिस्ट कुछ इस तरह से दिखेगी आपको. ये रिव्यूअर्स चेकलिस्ट है जो कि हम जैसे हम लोग जो रिव्यू करते हैं वहां पे अवेलेबल हमारे पास होती है. नंबर 1 पॉइंट ओरिजिनलिटी. अब अगेन देखिए वो पॉइंट सिमिलर ही हैं जो जैसे हमने पीछे देखे. तो ओरिजिनलिटी इज अगेन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. डज द पेपर कंटेन न्यू एंड सिग्निफिकेंट इंफॉर्मेशन एडिक्वेट टू जस्टिफाई पब्लिकेशन. अब देखिए पहला पॉइंट ही ओरिजिनलिटी है. अगर हमारे आर्टिकल में ओरिजिनलिटी नहीं है, इट मींस अगर यहाँ पे मार्जिनल पे टिक हो गया तो इट डिपेंड्स ही मे रिजेक्ट द आर्टिकल.
Actually, it not depends if the reviewer thinks that the originality is marginal, then even in a C category good journal or a Q3 Web of Science journal, the article is rejected at this moment, because originality is something that actually the main struggling point or the main pain point when it comes to publishing an international journal is that the paper gets just rejected on the basis of originality and novelty. Yes, and that's what I was talking about when we were about the introduction section in the last slides, that when you are writing the introduction, you should highlight what are the research gaps. Those research gaps basically highlight this point of originality, and once you have originality, then only you can think about getting it published into somewhere else. And originality, I think, is the main point of research. But there is no point of doing research if there is no originality.
And if we are not able to highlight the originality of the article, I think we have not done justice to what we have done.
And even when selecting topics for your research, means you are preparing your synopsis or you are trying to select a topic, first do a preliminary literature review, very thorough preliminary literature review, and see the topic that you have taken whether it has any scope for doing some original work. Then only select that topic. Else you should keep cycling through different 3-4 topics and see which topic promises the most original and most novel things that you can do. And because the thing with publication in international journals is everything else can be ignored and done later, but the originality thing cannot be done later. It has to be done when you are starting out on your research journey.
Yes, and it means the topic which you choose. Topic does not mean that the problem. Topic does not mean problem. Topic means the area in which you are working. Problem is something which can be anything. Right? For example, what we did, अभी हमने जो एक article publish जो भेजा है उसमें A rank में, it is about hospitality. What we have done is that we have created a shortest possible scale for hospitality employees based on the condition that कि hospitality employees बड़े busy होते हैं काम करने के लिए, है ना? They feel very hard to give time to fill the questionnaires. So based on this condition, based on the personal experience of some of our researchers, what we have done is that कि हमने एक hospitality पे एक scale है, resilience का scale है, वो develop करने की कोशिश कर रही है, और that too very shortest, कि immediate basis पे भले ही उसकी power कम हो जाए, लेकिन एक immediate glimpses हमको मिल जाए थ्रू द क्वेश्चनेयर, जिसके बेसिस पे अगर नेगेटिव रिजल्ट्स आते हैं रेजिलियंस के वहां पे, तो हम उसको बड़े क्वेश्चनेयर के तहत उसको और डिटेल में स्टडी कर सकें. राइट. So originality is a very important thing as far as your research article is concerned. Literature review: does the paper demonstrate an adequate understanding of the relevant literature, right, in the field, and have you cited them properly? अगर नहीं है, again cross. Methodology.
Again, in the literature review, the same steps that we discussed.
Yes.
That first of all, define all the terms that are present in your study. Trace all the definitions, lay down a working definition for all the terms, then develop the conceptual frameworks, meaning then you start linking terms with one another to develop research questions and hypotheses. And this is basically what relationship to literature, what they will see, what they will judge the quality of this.
Yes, and methodology is again very important.
Methodology we discussed earlier.
Methodology, if the methodology does not sound good, it looks fictitious, your paper is again deemed to be rejected.
Yeah, because in social sciences, the thing is, methodology is something that is very variable, okay? Because you are surveying people, you are not surveying equipments, you are not using equipments to obtain readings. So context, biases, how you are asking questions, what type of people you have asked the questions, what was the setting in which you were asking questions. All these things have to be documented. And since we are doing social sciences and we are interacting with people, there are certain ethical considerations which I discussed earlier also in the methodology section, that people less than 18 years of age, you have to take permission from ethical committees and all that. And all those things need to be included in the methodology section. Because what happens is, all these journals, they are not based in India. These international journals, they are usually based in United States or the European Union, and they have very, very strict standards when it comes to data privacy and consent and all those things.
Yes.
So you should, follow those guidelines very religiously, even if you are not based in any of these countries, because ultimately your paper will be going to the journals which are based here.
Yes, and it is said that, in the field of research, it is said that, the fight is not more about results. The fight is more about methodology.
Yeah, it's about methods. Results can be anything, but if your methods are wrong, even
How
good,
you have
good
reached-
results are useless.
How you have reached to the conclusion, this is what actually people are more interested in. Okay, now coming, rushing to all this point, results, I think your results should be clearly presented and properly analyzed. Your practical implication, again, a very important part. Every good journal looks for this part, and your quality of communication, right? Everything, whatever you have written, it should be able to clearly communicate with the reviewers, right? The article should be clearly reflected, right? So these are the important points which you should take care. I think मुझे लगता है कि इनका स्नैपशॉट आप अपने पास ना अपने आर्टिकल के साथ लगा के अपने रिव्यूज कर दे या फ्रेंड्स को दे, लेट दे फर्स्ट इमीडिएटली चेक योर आर्टिकल कि मेरा भी आर्टिकल कहाँ पे स्टैंड कर रहा है, कौन सा सेक्शन वीक है, और उसको फिर अकॉर्डिंगली इंप्रूव करें पहले मेन सबमिशन से पहले. Okay, now we will have some quick. I will have some quick discussion with Dr. Vishnu on handling reviewer comment. Dr. Vishnu, we have 5 minutes, and in this 5 minutes we have to close this part, handling reviewer comment.
Okay.
So, any important point regarding reviewer comment? Let us give 4 to 5 points.
Okay, first point, handling reviewer comments. If you are getting reviewer comments, that means your paper, many times, as we see, we have 3 outcomes. Minor revision, major revision, and rejection. And in all those 3 stages, you might get reviewer comments. Even when the paper is rejected also, you are getting reviewer comments. So let's start with the worst outcome, that is rejection. When you are getting reviewer comments from rejection, don't take it as an insult. Take it as if the reviewer has given you comments and then rejected your paper, then take it as a free advice that they are giving you.
Yeah, and
that is basically free advice, free of cost. Read those comments very, very carefully. Sit with your co-authors, sit with your supervisor, and I'm not mean reading comments just walking here and there. Take time out, 1 hour, 2 hours, with no disturbance. Sit with your supervisors, sit with your fellow co-authors. Go on each of these comments one by one, and try to see how your current manuscript falls in line with those comments. Means, what are the deficiencies that the reviewers are pointing out? That's why they have rejected your paper.
Yes.
Take those deficiencies, work on them, incorporate in your manuscript, and send them to another journal of a similar rank. This is how we, approach these things. Now, you might come to a second case where they have given you major revisions. Okay. Now, major revision is something that is not something that you should be, afraid of, because the thing is, if there are large number of changes, even small ones, they will click major revision. For example, a reviewer might give you a comment that the authors failed to clearly describe the survey process or the survey methodology adopted. This is the most common comment that comes from reviewers in social sciences and management sciences. So what in that case you can do is, you can clearly describe all the processes that you started, from developing the questionnaire to testing the questionnaire to conducting the survey to selecting the participants, tabulation of data, and tabulating the respondents of the profile. That's why I was stressing in the methodology section that all these things need to be clearly laid out. If any ethical or ethical permissions or boundaries had to be stepped in, the relevant permissions from ethical committees also need to be attached in that. Okay, so that's what happens in handling reviewer comments. Similarly, minor comments are also very minor. They usually come in the later stage of the peer review, round 3, round 4, where they may ask you to add some citations or delete some citations or include some new citations. Okay, but the most important thing that I wanted to show you when handling reviewer comments is that many a times it does happen that people address the reviewer comments, they incorporate all the changes that the reviewer has asked them, but they fail to communicate them properly to the reviewer.
Yes.
Okay, and failing to communicate the changes that the reviewer have recommended and that you have implemented in your paper actually is a very big problem, and that leads to rejection of the paper. Because see, the editors and the reviewers, they are handling multiple manuscripts in a month, and they need to be sure that what they have recommended has been implemented or not. So the best way to do this is how I do is that I basically.
ओके डॉक्टर, जब विष्णु जब तक आपको ये स्लाइड दिखाता है, मैं आपको एक इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट दे देखिए इसमें, जितने भी रिव्यूअर्स कमेंट्स आपको कमेंट्स दे रहे हैं, है ना, उन सबके सबको एड्रेस करने की कोशिश कीजिए, क्योंकि आई थिंक दीज आर एडवाइसेस, है ना, और एंड एडवाइस विल ऑलवेज विल हेल्प. मैंने अपने जितने पेपर्स को अभी तक इंप्रूव किया है, मुझे उसमें एक चीज पता चली क्लियरली कि जो पेपर पहले था और जो रिव्यूअर कमेंट्स को इनकॉर्पोरेट करने के बाद है, उसमें बहुत मेजर डिफरेंस है. तो जितने भी रिव्यूअर कमेंट्स हैं वो इनिशियली हमको लगता प्रॉब्लमेटिक है कि हम इसको इनकॉर्पोरेट कैसे करेंगे, लुक लाइक अ चैलेंज, बट द थिंग फैक्ट इज द मोमेंट यू इनकॉर्पोरेट दोज सजेशंस, योर पेपर लुक मच बेटर, राइट. तो सेकंड इंपॉर्टेंट सजेशन इज incorporate all the challenge, all the suggestions if possible. Okay.
I think if you can see the Word file here on the screen, it's a tabular form. It's a table with the heading called rebuttal to referee comments. And this table has two columns. One is the comment and second is action taken. So this is basically how I address the reviewer comments. Whatever comments that I receive from the reviewers or the editors, I put them on the left hand side of this table called the comments, and on the right hand side is basically I write my response, or I basically tell the reviewer or the editor what I have done with respect to the action of the reviewer. So for example, if you can see the first comment, the editor is saying you failed to provide sufficient critical commentary on prior work, which means the gap you seek to address is not sufficiently clear. Okay. So basically then I replied to him, please see the introduction section of the paper. From the second paragraph of the introduction section, scholarship in the past ... I have put it in inverted comma. So this way I have given a very clear pointer to the reviewer and to the editor ki, okay, you have said this is the problem, I have taken care of the problem, and this is the section or the page where you can find my revised work or by incorporating your comments. So this is how we address the reviewer comments. You just make a table and you put the comments on one side and the actions that you have taken to address those comments. For example, if they ask you to please include a little more details of the sample, then you may say, okay, I have attached table number 1 which contains the details of the sample. Please see that in the section 3 methodology, page number so and so. Please include these things in this here, because firstly it presents the correspondence between you and the reviewer in a very systematic way, what the reviewer has said and what you have done. Secondly, it looks very neat and clean, and thirdly, it looks very respectable, means that you have given due weightage to the reviewers, to their comments, to their observations, and you are applying them, you are replying to them one on one. You are not ignoring any comment, you are not trying to override the conversation. So it looks very professional and it looks like a very good academic discussion, and this is how it should be. So this is
and be respectful. Right? Be respectful. Don't use arrogant language while replying.
Be respectful, and the thing is, you can disagree with reviewers. It's not that you have to agree to all of this, all of their comments. But whether you are agreeing or disagreeing, this has to be done. This is an academic discussion, so this has to be done with sufficient proof. If you are disagreeing with a particular point of a reviewer, then you have to present the evidence contrary to his opinion. That's why you are disagreeing. Okay, give them references, give them give them other evidence, so that when they see that you have disagreed, they have a whole list of references or evidence to support your claim. And since it's an academic discussion, once they see that you have given the supporting references, they will not say anything. They will wholeheartedly accept your point of view.
So again, one important point is be respectful. जितने भी कमेंट्स हैंडल कर सकते हैं, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द कमेंट्स को आप हैंडल करने की कोशिश कीजिए. अगर किसी में नहीं भी कर पाते, डिसएग्रीमेंट है भी, तो बी पोलाइट, बी जेंटलमैन, राइट.
And sometimes it might lack that you might not be able to understand what the reviewer is saying. So you can just leave that comment and please reply in that comment ki we as authors are not able to understand the point of view what the reviewer is trying to say. Can you please rephrase it, or can you please re-explain it so that we can better incorporate it? And please be respectful, because it's We are not doing this for our own egotistical purposes. We are doing this to increase the
quality of the journal.
quality of the journal and
Quality of the science.
and the scope of the scholarship on a particular topic.
Yes.
So please be very patient and very polite in this conversation, because we also work as reviewers and editors, and we also work as authors also. So you have to sit on both sides of the table somewhere or the other down the
Definitely.
line. Okay, so please, what you will give to the community, what the same you will get back from the community.
Okay, sir. Now let us move. I think we have given some good suggestions. Let us get back. एक बार वो slide share कर देना. Okay. सिंह सर, slide दिख रही है?
हाँ
सर, टाइम कितना बचा है हमारे पास अब? अभी है टाइम?
हाँ, देख लीजिएगा। वैसे सबका डेटा समाप्त हो रहा है सर।
ठीक है, तो सर हमारे पास लास्ट अपना फाइनल
Yeah, we will be winding up in 5-10
लास्ट
minutes.
डूज एंड डोंट्स पे आता हूँ। मैं किसी चीज पे नहीं आता, क्योंकि आई थिंक ये पिछले एक सेशन में काफी पसंद किया है चीज था। सर इसको बड़ा करना पड़ा। तो फाइनल हम एडिटर्स के पर्सपेक्टिव पे चलते हैं। अभी हमने रिव्यूअर्स का पर्सपेक्टिव भी देख लिया, अब एडिटर्स पर्सपेक्टिव से चलते हैं। डूज एंड डोंट्स में रीकैप करता चलता हूं और उसके बाद हम सेशन को क्लोज करेंगे। नंबर 1 पॉइंट, एडिटर्स पर्सपेक्टिव, फोकस ऑन ऑल द 3 डायमेंशंस ऑफ योर पेपर, राइट? प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द कॉन्सेप्ट, presentation of the novelty of the article, and your analytical part, the mathematical part of your article, right? Take care of all the 3 sections. अपने आर्टिकल को तीनों सेक्शंस पे देखिए, कॉन्सेप्ट के सेक्शन से भी देखिए, प्रेजेंटेशन के सेक्शन से भी देखिए और एनालिटिकल के डायमेंशन से भी देखिए। नंबर 2, फोकस ऑन नॉवेलिटी एंड कंट्रीब्यूशन इन योर पेपर, बिकॉज दैट अगेन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। नंबर 3, डू प्लेगरिज्म चेक फ्रॉम Turnitin, right? Do a plagiarism check. It should be less than 10%. It's better if it's less. Right? 4th, write for the global audience, right? Sending your paper to a Scopus listed journal, do not write for the local audience, write for the global audience, right? Because your readers are international. Don't be region specific. नैनीताल जैसा शब्द आपके Scopus Index article में मेरे हिसाब से तो नहीं आना चाहिए, right? Because the moment you talk about Nainital district in your Scopus Index article, it means it is a regional preference. It is actually a limitation of the article rather than the strength of the article. So use that as a locality inside the limitation section rather than putting in the title section. Don't do that. 5th, cite recent papers. It's again very important. Recent papers and from the journal to the journal from which you are targeting. Recent paper को target कीजिए और specific कम से कम 5 से 6 citation है, या कम से कम 4 citations तो आपको उस जर्नल के डालने की कोशिश कीजिए जिस जर्नल को आप टारगेट कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये दिखाता है कि आप जर्नल के ऑनगोइंग डिबेट के पार्ट, आपका आर्टिकल जो जर्नल के ऑनगोइंग डिबेट का पार्ट है, जो कि आपके एडिटर को भी अट्रैक्ट करेगा आपके पेपर को डिसरिजेशन से बचाने के लिए। नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, गेट योर इंग्लिश पेपर edited through Grammarly, Quill, Bolt or other English editing software. It's a must. हमारी इंग्लिश, इंडियंस की इंग्लिश अच्छी है, लेकिन बहुत अच्छी फिर भी कम से कम यूएस स्टैंडर्ड्स वाली तो नहीं है।
I like to add one thing, that Grammarly and Quillbot are actually computer-based editing software.
Yes,
and computer is computer.
Yeah, but
so
logic has to be there.
Yeah, so better is first of all you try to get it edited from some editor in person who edits, and then when you see how they are framing the sentences, how they are doing that, then you learn that, and then you use Grammarly or Quillbot. Secondly, the best thing to improve your English and writing style is to read lots of papers from these good journals. The more you read from these good journals, the more you will get comfortable on how to write articles for these journals.
Yes. Okay, next 7 point. Cite recent papers only from Scopus and Web of Science Index journals, right? Books को reputed publishers के आप ले सकते हैं, लेकिन please local regional journals को, जब तक वो specific UGC वाला नहीं है, भैया please Scopus Web of Science वाले में अपने local journals को cite मत कीजिए। 8th point, your paper title should not reflect your country or region specific details, right? यूजीसी वाले में मेरे ख्याल से, क्योंकि हम इंडियन कंटेक्स्ट में बात करें तो शायद वहां एक्सेप्टेबल हो, वहां रीडर्स इंटरेस्टेड हो, लेकिन